but he's also quite the firecracker. I love his energy and his attitude towards freedom. He is the owner of Food Forest Abundance, and I'm happy to introduce you guys to Jim Gale. Give it up for Jim Gale.
Thank you, John. Wow, am I excited. Folks, we're in the apocalypse, thank God. This is it. This is the great unveiling, the great unmasking that we've been waiting for. Thank God for this. So my friends, my freedom fighters, everybody around the world, my intent is to blow your mind today, to wipe out the BS, the bad science, the belief systems, and the bullshit, the programs that have been controlling our world. And what I want to do, how I want to do that, is by breaking it down to the lowest common denominator. What is the cause of the suffering and of the programming and of the wars that plague our world and have for generations, thousands of years actually? Well, it starts with one word, and the word is govern, which means to manage or control, and mente, which means mind. My friends, once we start, well, I'll ask you this. What's the opposite of mind control? It's free will. It's enlightenment. But no, you can't be enlightened. Only one person per religion can be enlightened. There, my friends, is the metaphysical root of the problem. The fear that creates where we do not have a direct connection to source. By the way, was the thing able to pull up? All right, I want to show you something here. Now, this really blew my mind. There's a guy named Victor Hugo. He has a quote. When I first read this, there's one thing stronger than all of the armies of the world. It's the fourth slide, buddy, right down there. There's one thing stronger than all of the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. I'm going to share that idea with you. But I want you to notice. So I didn't know who Victor Hugo was, and frankly, I didn't care. I like the quote, but I thought maybe he's a deep state psychopath. So I'm going to check him out a little bit, right? The first picture I seen is his art. How relevant is that right there, right? There's something that's illegal. We cannot sell or consume that mushroom or cannabis or ayahuasca without the permission of mind control. Isn't that interesting? So, next slide, please. All right, so government is the problem for hundreds of years. 400 years ago is the first time you heard of the Rothschild and the Rockefeller families. You heard of these people saying, we're going to spread our kids around the corners of the earth and we're going to control the world's currency. What is a currency? It is a representation of the stored value of humanity. Next slide, please. Yeah, isn't this guy a wonderful one right here, right? All right. So it's all a social experiment with governmente. That's what governmente is. It's mind control. So it's all a series of experiments until we wake up. Next slide, please. Now, I care not which puppet is placed on the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. Well, he controls the currency of the world. This is about 200 years ago. Who's still running the world today? The same families. Go ahead. Nothing to see here. Right? I won't spend too much time on it. You know, Einstein and Tony Robbins, two of my favorite people throughout different parts of my life. Einstein said, if I want to find the solution to any problem, I'm going to spend the first 55 minutes on the problem itself, defining and understanding the problem. And then I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes on the solution. Tony Robbins said the exact opposite. I'm going to spend 5% of my time on the problem and the 95% on the solution. And I understand, and I will break down both of those philosophies because they're both right from a certain perspective. Go ahead. Whatever the mind, well, first of all, I'm going to talk about this perspective real quick. When you study the problem enough to understand it, that's the most important thing. So in permaculture, we have to turn the problem into the solution. And when we can understand the problem, then there's no more reason. In fact, a little backstory. I ended up starting a mortgage company when I was 30 years old and did about $1.3 billion in sales in 3.5 years, starting from scratch. I had time. That's when I red pilled. I was living in Costa Rica and I red pilled hard. I went down every rabbit hole you could find. I spent 8-12 hours a day every day. And that period of my life kind of sucked because I was focused so intensely on the problem and the psychopaths and the depth of our ignorance. And when I say our ignorance, now I've heard people say that humanity is the problem. No, it is not. Humanity is not the problem. It's ignorance that's the problem. Humanity, the people in this room, we are the solution to the problem. In fact, I heard an incredible person put on a telegram message this morning, and it was John Bush, and he said, "We are changing the world." And he said, and I'm going to make those grandiose claims because that's what's needed. And I said, that takes such wisdom and courage to say that. So I want to use that as a seed, and I want to invite you to do something with me that will raise your vibration. All right? I want you to take a couple deep breaths. Take a couple deep breaths. My friends, this is the foundation of freedom, is to silence your mind and to allow your mind to relax. Deep breath, exhale, and feel the tightness in your body and feel it releasing. Okay, inhale. Now I want you to look at your hands, and I want you to say, the future of humanity is in my hands. The future of humanity is in my hands. And feel the power rise up within you. Feel it, because when you feel that power in your heart, then you will be an inspiration to others. There's no amount of pain or suffering or shame or humiliation or rage that can help anybody do anything. So the future of humanity is in my hands, and to raise my vibrations, and then to understand the next, there you go. Whatever the mind of man or woman, and I put in the or woman, I've got 4 daughters, and I do believe there's been an imbalance for hundreds of years. Whatever the mind of man or woman can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Now, are those just fancy words? No, they are not. They are our source-given, God-given, nature-given reality when we break free of the programming. Next slide, please. So I was in Costa Rica, and I had my first 2 daughters. I had red-pilled, and I had learned, thanks to studying permaculture, that we're done unless we make changes. Now, I'm an optimist. When I read Bill Mollison's quote, though the problems of our world are increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple, I started to bawl, because I had been studying the problem for so long, so intensely, that I did not see a way out of the problem. I read that, and my optimism was reignited. In fact, a friend of mine, Ethan, he's one of our cooperative partners, he said, "Jim, I just looked up your name. Your name, Jim or James, means to overthrow, defeat, or supplant." I really like that word, supplant. And your last name means Gale, strong wind. You are called upon to be a strong wind of change. Now, I've never believed in destiny. I never even really thought about destiny until that moment, because that's who I am. Next slide, please. Now, one more look at the problem, and then we're going into the solution. Food. If you want to control people, control food. What comes from a society that is unhealthy? Well, you're looking at this society right now. Next slide, please. I'm going to go into the ultimate stack of functions. Permaculture has it all figured out. There's nothing I'm saying here today with regard to the solutions that is hypothesis or hypothetical. It's demonstrable fact. And you all know this. And I want to encourage you and inspire you out there listening everywhere to understand this truth. All right, next slide, please. Number 1, it's easy. When you design a system mimicking natural systems, it can take literally less maintenance than a lawn. In fact, you can look this up. The Amazon rainforest was a designed food forest thousands of years ago. Now, I'll give you two examples. In Florida, where we live, Dr. Ian Scott, my partner, I went to his house, and he's got a 1/10 of an acre food forest in his backyard, over 100 perennial plants, over 70 different types of food growing his 1/10 of an acre backyard, stacked all the way up from the sweet potatoes and the ginger and the turmeric and the cassava, all the way up to the overstory fruit trees and the vines going all along the fence. It's absolutely a 1/10 of an acre of paradise. So I asked Dr. Scott, I said, Ian, how much time do you work in your food forest? And he goes, half an hour a day. I said, Ian, how much time do you work in your food forest? He goes, not at all. And then, so on the flip side, to me, that's just amazing. On the flip side, we planted a food forest at Galt's Landing, where we're building a completely off-grid community on a 430-acre private lake. The first house is almost done. We will have all of the food, water, and energy needs not only met, but we will have a radical abundance of food, water, and energy on this 52-acre property. And we're building a studio on the property to demonstrate every day how it is to live completely free. Next slide, please. Oh, and with regard to that, we've put in so far 2,000 feet of syntropic agroforestry, which is just rows of food. We've got over 100 different species already and hundreds of different plants. And I've spent, we put one patch in, and the first 4 months, we probably watered it 5 times. 14 months later, we did not do one thing, and it was thriving. No maintenance in 14 months. So that's a different design. And we've learned some lessons on this. We need to ask our customers, what's your goal? How much do you want to observe and interact with your food forest? And that's one of our first questions, because some people say, I'm too busy. I just want to have food growing. I don't want anything to do with it. I take a deep breath and say, I think you will. You will, because it's paradise. So number 2, ROI. Now, there's so many levels of ROI, but let's just take one type of ROI, the ROI we think about in our society, and that's cash, right? Take a peach tree. And now a peach tree, how much is it going to cost to put a peach tree in your yard? Let's say you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, or better yet, the local organic nursery, and you put a peach tree in your yard. Let's say it costs you $100, $150. Within 3 or 4 years, you're going to have 100% ROI on that peach tree. And then after that, a peach tree produces 250 or so peaches a year. So now you've got 100% ROI year over year, and that's without the guild. That's without the community of plants around the peach tree, all the different plants that help support that peach tree's life, and then that peach tree helps provide shade and nourishment for as well. Now, in one area the size of a peach tree, you've got hundreds of % ROI per year. And if you want to design it so it's no maintenance, great. Now, you've heard of pruning fruit trees, right? So now you turn a liability or a time expense, if you don't like that kind of thing, into an asset where you do this air layering thing. You cut a little notch in the bark, and let's say you got 10 or 15 fruit trees in your backyard. You have somebody go out, or you go out, you cut a notch in all of them, and you put some rooting compound with a tennis ball or a little gadget on there. You go out, you just spent 5 minutes of effort. And now you cut that off, and you've got a $20 peach tree or a $20 fruit tree. So look at the return on investment of time. It's incredible. Next slide, please. Food security. This is a big deal, my friends. The long-term food supplies are completely effed. They're done. They're gone. They're dying. The short-term is what I'm more concerned about right now, because we will fix the long-term. It's happening fast. Catherine Austin Fitz yesterday said we got 1 to 2 years left. Well, their time is of the essence, my friends. And I do not say anything out of fear. I've never felt better, more focused, more alive in my life. This is the greatest time to be alive right now. Now is the time. And we don't have to do anything. We don't need to do anything. We get to be a part of this transition. How cool is that? Next slide, please. Taste and nutrient density. Nature knows what she's doing. Source, God, whatever you call this magical energy field that we are all part of, it is the ultimate wisdom and intelligence. When a fruit some of them, they drop to the ground, that's the moment they're ready. Others, you can tell when they're ready because they're vibrant. It's in living color saying, eat me, pick me, I am delicious. I was walking through my yard the other day, and our first strawberries came out, and oh my God, they were delicious. Best strawberries I've ever had for sure. And I was a little biased, but they were. Next slide, please. Reduced stress, and I referred to this earlier. The reduced stress of gardening is proven to be as healthy for you as things like yoga and meditation. And when you combine them, when you stack them, now you've got the best of both worlds. Now, if one of these things is enough to change your life, what are your family's odds of having diabetes, cancer, and heart disease when you've got a food forest in your yard? And when you eat one healthy meal a day, guess what? They go down radically. If that were the only reason to have a food forest in your yard, would it be a pretty good reason? I'd say it would be. Now look at the stack in this first 5. When you combine all of them, it's magical, my friends. Next slide, please. Reverse deforestation. This is a big deal. I think this is a big one. Next slide, please. Diverse ecosystems. Diversity is the foundation of the strength of our planet. Diversity in culture, diversity in thought, diversity in ideas, and diversity in nature. We are destroying our seeds at a rate that's radically unsustainable. Now, all unsustainable systems fail 100%. That's the nature of the word. And what's a sustainable system? A system that produces more energy than it takes to create and maintain, right? Nature isn't sustainable. It's radically abundant, right? All we have to do is get the poisons and the poison producers, the parasites. We have to wake up. We have to see truly. We have to see clearly what is causing the destruction. And it's one thing, and it has been the same thing forever, for generations. The solution is this: diversity. Next slide, please. Healthier food. Well, like I said, nutrient density. When you have food that's vine ripened, it's going to be much healthier than food that you buy at the grocery store. Everybody's had a tomato that you buy at the grocery store compared to a vine ripened tomato. It's like 2 different experiences. It's not anywhere close to the same thing. Next slide, please. Reduce consumption of poisons. Well, the American lawn, 40 to 50 million acres of lawn in the United States alone, takes more pesticides, more chemicals, and more human resources than any other crop. The American lawn is the biggest mass brainwashing scam on a physical level of all time. But it's also our biggest opportunity. So that's what we're going to get into here in a second. Next slide, please. There you go. This is it. This is the idea whose time has come that is stronger than all of the armies of the world. The Garden of Eden is that idea. Enlightenment is that idea. And I do not speak from a religious perspective. I was raised Catholic, and I understand the fear. I understand the manipulation and the shame and the humiliation of it all. That is all part of the governmente. That's a control mechanism. There's nobody that is between you and source. Next slide, please. If you want to find the secrets to the universe, feel in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. I respect that man immensely, but that one word is going to make the difference. When you can take that deep breath and feel yourself, feel inside, feel the vibration rising, feel inspired. I'm not sure if you've ever read Power versus Force. Fantastic. It helped me to understand this idea of energy and frequency, because the emotions are basically, they're tied to your frequency. You know, a low emotion, shame, you're like, oh, I mean, everybody knows what that looks like, depression. So, yeah. So, oh, I got some echo. Okay, next slide, please. The future of humanity. So our hands, it's in our hands collectively. But when you can raise to that next level and say it's in our hands, that's when you'll feel so much more empowered. You'll raise your own vibration massively by looking at yourself as the solution to the problems that face our world. Next slide, please. So grow with us. Now, we're going to get into the structures that we've put in place to allow, to inspire, to encourage, and to strategically affect this change. we have what's called a food forest cooperative. And the cooperative program that we launched last year, I actually, about a year ago, I had went from zero to about $20 million in net worth down to negative 80,000. When I found out that we're destroying our planet and I went through that period, I started efforting, I started struggling, I started striving, and every bit of my being and every bit of my money went to finding this solution. Last year, I gave up the fear, I gave up the effort, I gave up the struggle. And what has happened since then has been nothing short of magic. Magic. And I'm gonna see, and you're gonna see some of this. It's mind-blowing, you guys. So next slide, please. So I wrote a message to Del Bigtree. I wrote a speech, and I walked up to him in Sanford, Florida. I said, Del, I respect your work very much, and I'd like you to read this. And he read it. And I'll never forget. I said, can I buy a beer or anything? He said, yeah, I'll have a Corona. And I thought that was funny. He read the speech, and he said, Jim, you've got something here. He called me a little bit later, and he said, Jim, we'd like to talk to you about being on the high wire. I said, great. And I had already let go of the fear and the effort and the struggle. And my friends, that is so important and so wonderful, is to connect with this higher level of vibration that is the foundation of it is faith and courage. When we can get to the foundation of faith and courage, then everything is possible after that. I wrote him this thing, and then he had us on the high wire 9 months ago. It was Earth Day, April 21st. Since then, we have what might be one of the fastest growing cooperatives in history. We have got partners all over the world who are helping people grow food. We've now got about 32 or 33 people on our food forest design team. And here's what we're all about. We're all about the voluntary exchange of value. Our contract, in fact, I spent about $250,000 getting a document ready in the franchise world. It had 244 pages of FDD and 89 pages of operations manual, and it made me sick to my stomach. Every line in there represented some type of control and fear. I threw the whole pile of shit in the trash. Now we have a 2-page document. In the future, we might not have any document. We have a 2-page, and it says you can come and go anytime, and we can work with you or not work with you based on ethics. That's it. That's it. And we're crushing it. We're growing all over the world. If you are a designer, if you want to be in the business of helping people grow food, then get a hold of us. If you are somebody that's already doing it, we don't care if you're in our network or not. We will shine a light on you because we have one mission. I have 4 daughters. And believe me, I am so happy because I feel so inspired and focused on this mission. There is nothing I could be doing better or more selfish than what I'm doing right now. Next slide, please. So then, and this is just the miracles just stack. So we're on the high wire with Del Bigtree. We exploded. We're now designing for people all over the world. We're doing resorts in Thailand. In fact, a really quick side note, Marcel, an amazing and very, very wise and successful entrepreneur, got a hold of me. He said, Jim, I like what you got. I'd like to talk with you about helping you out. My whole future's set. It's done. One phone call. We've got all the money we need to do everything we need to do. That was it. Now I can focus all my energy. And another really quick side note, we're strategically and selfishly investing 100% of our net monthly profits back into the system. And here's how. Building food forests at schools and at community centers and at churches and at food banks. Why? Because it's good for us. Because it's good for us. Because it's good for us. But it's good for everybody for us to do that. It's good for our company. It's how the big dogs do it. It's how Amazon hasn't made any profits, right? They keep reinvesting. We're reinvesting too, except for it's the opposite. We're investing in the freedom of humanity, and we'll even invite anybody who wants to be a part of this in any way to join us. And if you want to do it on your own, like I said, we'll shine a light on you. The people that I've seen and heard talk at this event, we want to meet all of you, and we want to shine a light on you. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that's what we do. So then, I'm not a movie guy. I'm not a TV guy. I've had my favorite shows, and two of my favorite shows were The Crocodile Hunter. When Steve Irwin died, I cried. And then Entourage, about 10 years later. For 5 years or so, that was my favorite show, right? And my favorite actor was this guy right here. I get a call within 48 hours from the producer of my favorite show and my favorite actor, and we just did a TV show called The Land of Plenty. One of the big networks, which I can't say right now, although I want to, just offered, just call us and they want to buy it. Okay, so then we get a call from another network or another group, not a network, that also wants to buy it, all just in the last week. The show is phenomenal. Here in a second, I think we can cue up the actual trailer. So is there another slide? Because then I'll get into some more details about, So we just did our first crypto sale 2 days ago, and we are coming to market. And when I say we, I mean we. The world is coming to market with the first crypto that I'm aware of that's backed by food production. We're putting all of the energies and the things that we have going into the same general freedom movement. And we're going to be attaching the people who are growing food. We're going to, instead of mining, which was a major liability and energy expense, now they're growing, and they're growing the value of that coin, of their asset, massively. And then they can that's the wrong word. They can put some of their production, they can guarantee it to the market in exchange for coin, right? And then they can use that coin to do whatever else they want to do. So we're helping, and this is something, we've got a great team working on this. If you know anybody that is in this space and you want to help us make this happen or get to this happening, then please reach out. This is happening at the speed of consciousness, as Dr. David Martin said. Yeah, it's really epic. Okay, next slide, please. We've also got, and this is done, this is fully baked and ready to go. All the bank accounts, which are several, and all the different platform pieces are done. We will be, that I know of, the first entity that finances the installation of food forests around the world. Yes. So if you want a food forest, but you don't have 10, 20, 30 grand to put down into this asset, then we can finance it for you. Is that amazing or what? We also finance nurseries and large scale grows. And let's talk about this as a logical investment, right? You buy a fruit tree, let's say it's this tall, and you buy it for $20 or $50 or $80, depending on what kind it is, right? What's the price going to be like when it's that tall in 1 year? It's going to be 2 times as much. It's 100% ROI just in a year, just by having it sitting in a pot and giving it water a little bit once in a while. It's scalable. It's radically abundant as an investment. Now, most of the people that are investing because it's a freedom fund. But the fact that it is also structured like a very well-oiled business is very helpful. So it's very thoughtful in all of the different worlds. It's the ultimate stack of functionality. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Food Forest Cooperative. Our designers, they've made their lives into designing freedom for people, into helping people design edible landscapes, food forest landscapes. We've got a document called a Food Forest Landscape Blueprint, and it's a 45-page document, and within the document is a custom design. So let's say you or somebody else out there wants to turn your yard into something productive and abundant, then you get a hold of Food Forest Abundance. Dr. Ian Scott, our lead designer, will meet with you, and he'll say, okay, he'll take all the information, the Google Earth, pictures and videos of the space. Maybe you'll walk around together and you do a FaceTime so you can get all the details of the property and ask a bunch of questions related to what your goals are for your property. And then we'll put one of our designers on the job, and they will design a Food Forest blueprint for you that can be DIY'd, or we have that network of installers. And that's the other business opportunity. If you want to be in this business It's a landscaping business. It's relatively simple because you've got a blueprint in your hand and it says exactly the layers of mulch and sheet mulch and soil amendments. In fact, this is really cool. Anybody know what a compost tea brewer is? Well, it's an amazing benefit to a food forest, to the soil. So we take all the different elements and minerals that that help inoculate and help spark life in the soil, and we are sending them to every one of our cooperatives around the world. 50-gallon drums with all the details inside, so they can have the business of regularly going back to these food forests and inoculating them with compost tea. It sounds like maybe a trivial thing if you don't understand the value of it, but it's freaking huge. So the cooperative network then is basically the business of landscaping, but it's the most functional freedom landscaping that we can imagine. And this, my friends, is the idea whose time has come, when we have mass adoption. And that's my joyful obsession. It's my joyful duty, is to catalyze a shift in consciousness that leads to mass adoption of this most logical thing. And that's to use our resources wisely, to raise our energy and to enjoy life and to use our land in a way that's regenerative and abundant, as opposed to scarcity and death. It's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? All right. So are there any questions? Yes. 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 Yeah.
But it's definitely on the, it's in the plans.
Yeah.
But it's the wildlife, you
Yes.
see, because I have a real affinity to the wildlife, and that's really their forest. And so what strategies might you suggest?
That's the number one thing. So you've got deer and wildlife that eat the plants that you have. Now, this is an interesting thing that we have going on at Galt's Landing. We have got these 2,000 rows with 7 or 8 different types of perennial lettuces and like 100 different species. There are deer tracks all over, and they're not eating any of it. I can't figure that out. What I think is happening is that there is so much food in the area that animals do not like to eat something that they don't know about. If they have food, they're going to eat it. If they're hungry, then they're going to sample new things. So when you have enough abundance, then that's going to help. Now, there are also many different ways, including human hair. So, yeah, I'll give you one example. And this is an example that serves several different purposes. My buddy Chad Johnson up in northern Minnesota, he started a food forest about 5 years ago. He built these raspberries. They're 8 foot tall, so thick you can't see through them, raspberry bushes around his annual beds and some of his more sensitive and edible plants for deer and moose. Right? It's epic. Now, that takes a little bit of time. You can speed up time by putting a fence in and putting a 2-layer fence in. They have these things called 3D fences where you've got one row fence and then the next row is about 1 meter out and it's just one line. It can be electrified with a little tinfoil on there, a little peanut butter. The deer lick it and they go bye-bye. So every system should have its apex predator if it's a balanced system. Now, we can be that apex predator. We can eat and use those animals in that way, or we will invite balance by having these types of systems. So if you're out of balance, then you have to find a way to create balance by creating the systems. Maybe you put some bird's nests, some hawk nests in the trees there. Maybe you have some coyotes and you don't shoo them away. Maybe you have a dog, right? So it's having the balance that creates the strength of our system. All right. Yes.
For the training you mentioned.
Training.
First of all, time out. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I heard you interviewed in a podcast.
Awesome.
And your power versus force, life changing in terms of just losing fear over everything that's happening and why you see it. And so thank you. You are just beautiful.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. The timeline for the training. The timeline for the training?
The permaculture course,
Yeah.
is that the one?
Yeah.
So it's a 72-hour course. It's an online course. You can also go in person. And we work with Nicholas Bertner, who's here in Texas, and a fabulous teacher. And Enzo, we have several different people we work with depending on location and desire and things like that. It's a 72-hour course. You can get it done fast, or you can take months to do it. Most people take 3-4 weeks or a month to get through the course. Then you'd want to have some on the ground experience so you can really put the techniques to practice. We have many layers. We have an educational division within our company. In fact, our internal mission is to serve our cooperatives. That's how we grew the mortgage company from 0 to 1.3 billion, is by serving the loan officers. This is same structure. We're serving the cooperatives. So we have all sorts of different layers of education in there. I have no idea what the time is. Do I have another couple minutes?
We have 10 minutes for a couple more questions, then play your video.
Cool. Yeah. Just thank you for keeping me on track there. All right. Did that answer your question? Okay. Wonderful. All right. Any other questions? And by the way, I want to say hi to Melinda and Daryl in Mexico at the Greater Reset with Derek and crew. They are one of our Food Forest cooperative partners. And to all the partners around the world, in New Zealand, in Australia, in Germany, in the UK, all over the world, thank you for what you're doing. We together are creating and helping to create the foundation of freedom for our world. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Are you familiar with Ellen White fruit tree planting method?
I am. I think
you
it's
use
fantastic. It depends on, there's many different techniques, and it depends on the actual co-op and the designer. But that is a great technique. I love it. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I think it's pretty clear that you're a total badass, and I really appreciate the big think. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, what's that expression? Those that are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that actually do.
Yes.
So I'm getting those vibes from you big time. So let's say there's someone in the audience perhaps that has some big dreams and big goals, but they've been struggling with limiting beliefs or barriers to their success. Are there any thinkers or doers or authors? Like you mentioned Napoleon Hill and Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Can you share some of your favorites?
Absolutely. So lately, I've went completely metaphysical. I am now Alan Watts and Terrence McKenna. Once in a while, Ram Dass, Esther Hicks. I've completely went into this meditation, and I no longer plan anything unless it's something that has to be planned. Like I had to get a plane ticket. I said to my wife, "Babe, can you give me a plane ticket?" And she's amazing. And thank you, baby. I love you. And so lately, I have literally just been flowing with it. And the magic lays out every single day. We just got a call from one of our Food Forest cooperatives, Alova and Patty. Thank you so much. We're looking at putting Food Forests in over 1,000 schools in the United States. And we've already got a potential funding source for that. Boom! Right? Are you kidding me? That one thing will change the world. Oh, and I'm going to call out. I'm going to go for it. Elon Musk. Now, I don't know if you're a good guy or a bad guy. I'm kind of leaning towards not so good, but maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. And I'm going to give you a chance to show me that I'm wrong. You just had an engagement with the UN guy, and the UN guy called you out, and he said, Elon, with 2% of Elon's wealth, we could end world hunger. And he said, show me a plan. I've got the plan. The plan, right? Boom. With $6 billion, we could put $1 million food forest in 6,000 of the world's biggest cities, with educational centers to show what that means to the society. That one thing will radically change the world. Elon, get a hold of me. Joe Rogan, Russell Brand, all of you guys. I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. All of you guys, let's get together and let's change the freaking world. This is how we do it. This is exactly how we do it. And I'm inviting you and encouraging you, get a hold of us. Our network growing exponentially is going to help. And then, of course, all the other permaculture networks. We will engage anybody who's willing to be part of this solution. All right. Yeah.
All right. You want to cue up the video?
What was that?
You want to intro the video? Let us
Sure.
know what we're going to watch.
Yes. What you're going to watch now is the trailer for The Land of Plenty that I mentioned earlier. And I want to thank Fraser, the producer of The Crocodile Hunter, and his mom, Judy. They're amazing people, dear friends now. Hit it.
What do you want to do with this amazing property?
I'll show you.
Okay.
Let's go.
Awesome.
My name is Jim Gale, and for the past 14 years, I've been on a mission to show people how easy it is to grow food instead of lawns.
Well, it's a little bit whiny. What? Yeah. Seeds of life right here.
Magic beans.
Magic beans that turn into life. I mean, how much more magical can you get? Look at that. This is like treasure hunting. Holy snaps. Oh, the flavor comes on. My whole mouth is alive.
I closed my eyes so many times and I was like imagining the grapes here, and now I don't have to close my eyes because there are grapes here. We're in a time in a culture in which people feel so disconnected.
Yeah.
And they want to feel like you have place in the world.
Gosh, that's powerful.
And now this bat box has a place.
Yes, it does.
In the last 2 years, more people have chosen to grow food at home than any time in history.
You know, people say that the Garden of Eden is a utopic fantasy when it's the next logical step.
So if you want more abundance, more flavor, more freedom, more energy, join me in the land of plenty.
This is a wild hibiscus. You can actually eat.
Nice. You've been eating all the food. You
yeah.
got to share.
Share, buddy. And check out that leaf. Isn't that amazing?
I mean, I was floating 20 feet off the ground my whole life. I feel like I have something to actually contribute that is not just ego or...
Right. So would you go back?
I can't go back.
I love that guy. I love that guy. He meant it. It's a beautiful thing what's happening now, my friends. Thanks to all of you and everybody in this event and everybody around the world who's standing up. To you truckers, although I do want to urge you to not shut the supply chain down for too long because we're in a little bit of trouble, but I love your intent. Yeah. Thank you, everybody who's out there not complying with tyranny. You've seen the meme of the chessboard on the backs of the slaves. All we got to do is stand up and love life. What I'm asking you to do is just love life in faith and courage, my friends. Love you and have a great day.
All right, give it up, give it up, give it up. Thank you so much. Wow. Woo! 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 All right. Wow. What a guy. What a guy. So that energy is infectious, and I hope each and every